Alright, welcome back everyone to the seasonal wrap-up show. As you might have guessed by the title, this is a bit of a special episode that doesn't quite fit into any seasonal category. Normally I would just be jumping right into the fall season because I just finished up the summer season, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this video will be out after this. If not, I will delay it until further notice. I'm going to be one of the guest hosts on the R Anime Awards this year. I'm going to be presenting Best Dramatic Character, and so I figured I should do my due diligence and just go ahead and jump to all of the shows in that category that I have not seen yet, which will be these 5 down here. So we got Overtake, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, Tsurune Season 2, Skip and Loafer, and Pluto. And unlike the rest of the seasonal wrap-up show, I'm just going to watch all of these front to back just for the purpose of having them in my arsenal if I need to discuss them for the award. I have no clue who's going to win this award. I have some theories, but I don't know for sure. So I just want to binge them all just in case. Which includes, like, taking Skip and Loafer off the drop list and just going all the way through with that, which I don't have a problem with. I didn't dislike the show. I just found it a little bit slow for my liking. And also picking up Tsurune, which I didn't even get to the second season because I dropped the first season a while ago. So I'm just gonna give that one another shot and see how it goes. But for now, we're gonna jump into Overtake, which is a Formula 1, I think. I don't think it's specifically Formula 1, but it's some kind of racing series. And I know basically nothing about car racing, so let's jump into it. Alright, just finished up all of Overtake, and I gotta be honest, I was bored most of the time. There's, like, not for lack of trying, I do think the narrative itself was genuinely pretty decent, but something about it just really did not allow me to get invested at all. And I think a lot of it is like the visual presentation, but not in the ways that you might think. Because, like, on the surface, this is a very polished looking series. It's a troika anime, which means, like, you have a 1 in 3 chance of it being directed by Aoki, which this one was. You would probably know him better as the director of Fate Zero, but he's also done, I think he did Recreators. He did All Noah Zero. And I would say the character designs are much closer to an All Noah Zero, or more of Sakurako's Investigation, really. I don't know if Aoki directed that or not. I can't remember. But I mean, we could start with that. A lot of troika anime have very similar character designs. I shouldn't have been a hack and a fraud and just went into this blind, because I should have looked up to see if this is the same character designer as those other shows. I'm going to assume that it is, because they look so similar to other troika productions. Like, the main character in this, the photographer, reminds me so, or at least in my brain, he reminds me so much of the... Actually, I can't even say that for sure, because I don't remember what the PTSD guy in All Noah Zero looked like. But here we are with another troika character with PTSD. So that was interesting. But like these character designs immediately clue you in. I'm like, oh, this is a Troika anime. And for me, that's not necessarily a benefit, because I don't particularly care for these character designs. They're on the wrong side of generic, if that makes any sense. Like, they're competent designs. Some of them look decent, look interesting, like Alice, I believe her name is. I like her design. I like the Komaki Motors manager's design. Like, that little hair tuft was kind of fun. But otherwise, they're just so generic looking, and like, I don't want to use this word, but overly polished, in that they are very clean looking designs. And if I'm being honest, that's not what I'm looking for from character designs. Like, I want it. I'm not going to use the word soulless, but they feel, to use some Zoomer lingo, they feel rizless. They lack pizzazz. They lack any kind of, like, strikingness to them. Like, the most striking thing about these character designs is that Haruka's blue eyes. I will give them credit for that. I really liked that design choice. But other than that, I'm probably going to completely forget about these character designs in a week or so. They are just totally boring and unengaging. And that's kind of the show, the presentation of the show on the whole. Like, there's nothing... The camera work isn't particularly interesting. The shot composition, outside of, like, the PTSD moments, isn't particularly interesting. It's very standard and straightforward, which is not what I would expect from Aoki. Like, maybe it's just because his stuff that I'm more familiar with, I know... Well, no, even, like... Yeah, he did Recreators, right? Yeah, Recreators looked fucking cool as hell. And maybe it's because Aoki is normally... I normally associate him with, like, just straight-up action series, like action fantasy stuff, or action sci-fi stuff, but, like... I guess when you put him in, like, a more realistic setting, I'm just not a fan. Because this was just not all that interesting. Aside from the fact that I don't particularly care for motorsports in general. I believed in the intro section for this video, I mentioned that this was like F1 racing. It's technically F4, which I like that I learned some stuff about Formula racing in this, that there are different leagues and stuff, kind of like majors and minors, so on and so forth. But I'm just not a fan of motorsports. Never have been. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And you know what? To their credit, I will say that the way that the cars moved in this, despite being very obviously CG, I will give them credit and say that the way that the cars moved in this actually does look like a Formula race, because I actually like pulled up like some highlight videos on YouTube just to be sure, because at first I was like, this looks kind of weird. Is this what it's supposed to look like? And I looked up like actual footage. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's what it's supposed to look like. It's just not fun to watch. Although I will say, in the clips that I saw, some of the cuts were a bit more dynamic and a bit more thrilling. Oh, that's another thing that I think this show could have used more. It could have used more of the announcer. Like, do it like Uma Musume style, where the announcer is like just bursting out of his fucking chest to talk about all the different minute changes in this race. maybe that's not how it is in real life, but like it would have made this a lot more engaging, I guess. Even though we're really only focusing on 3 characters, and to their credit, those characters are explored decently enough. I like Haruka's story. I think I actually liked Harunaga's story the best, of like him being like this big hotshot who then gets injured and has to figure out like how he wants to race. The third guy, whose name I already forgot, started with a T. I liked all of their stories. They were decently engaging on a narrative level. I actually did like the cameraman's PTSD story. I thought that was pretty well executed. On the surface, it seems kind of silly, but like when we get into like the specifics of what actually happened, I do think it was well executed and well written. But just something about this show felt very flat and very like unmotivated. That's a great word for this show. This show looks unmotivated. Like it is not trying all that hard to grab you with its visuals. It feels very plain and just not it's not sucking me in. Even in the actual racing scenes, like there were only a few moments where it was like, oh, I'm actually kind of invested in like how this race is gonna end. I just didn't find that all that engaging, I guess. I was kind of hoping to have more to say about this, but yeah, I was kind of bored. On theory, like the narrative of this show did everything right, but it's just like it didn't have the sauce to back it up visually. Just want to point out on one last kind of petty note, the title of the show is Overtake, which I get is like a reference to like overtaking the someone in the like lapping them, and like one of the and like within like 3 minutes of me looking up like real footage of Formula racing, someone used the word overtake, and I don't think anyone used this word at all in the show. So petty, but I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a title drop. That might have been given it a little bit more hype. But anyway, Overtake is done. So we're going to, let's see. This is not going very high up on the list at all. We're going to put it in the 41 spot, actually, with a decent 5. I found that to be totally average and just not all that engaging. And now, moving on to the next entry, we have Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. A lot of people were super hyped about this. I am an on-the-fence kind of Jujutsu Kaisen fan. We'll explain why later, but for now, let's jump into the show. Alright, finished up all of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, also known as How Much Can We Make Yuji Suffer? Jesus Christ, that poor boy. Yeah, that was pretty good. Really enjoyed that. Just absolute huge action fest of a show. So, before we jump into this, I should point out that I actually dropped the manga for Jujutsu Kaisen fairly early into Shibuya. Like, I think it was around the grasshopper guy, what's his name? Ko guy, I think is the name of the character. Like, it was around then where I was like, I just kind of checked out of the manga because for reasons that this season both fixes and just kind of doesn't fix. One of the reasons is I'm not a huge fan of the art style for the manga. I know it's not a super beloved art style, but I do want it's a little too like sketchy for me, like sketch-ish. I guess and it gets kind of hard to read sometimes, so it just didn't really land with me, I guess. Which the anime definitely fixes because this is some of the best action that I've seen all year. Not surprising at all considering that this was the show where Mappa was turning their animators into paste so hard that they were just quitting and refusing to work with the studio ever again. That was this production. And unfortunately it shows because this is a really damn good looking show. The action scenes are fucking great. Mappa's renditions of these character designs are really solid. The facial expressions are so fucking good. The just weird segments that they come up with to do interesting animation stuff with. Like Toto's like imaginary idol sequence was so fucking fun and cool. And like there were just so many incredible like really cool cuts, not just like in terms of like the quality of the cut of looking cool, but just like the concept of it, like watching whatever that cursed thing that Megumi unleashed on Sukuna or whatever. I forget who he was fighting that. I think it was Sukuna. Like there's a shot of him like swimming up a building basically, and like just the rubble is the water he's pushing out of the way. And I was like, that's such a fucking cool idea for a cut. It's fucking cool looking. The show looks fucking cool. Now, there are definitely some places where it breaks, like some of the stuff with Yuji, where Yuji's in like that bright white subway area near the end of the season definitely start to look a little sketchy. Not sketchy in the other way meaning of the word, where it's like iffy, but like on the whole, this is a really damn good looking show, and I hate that Mappa had to do. They didn't have to do that. I hate that the means to which we got these ends, these really fucking cool looking ends. I hate it. But yeah, it's just fucking great animation, great action sequences. The color design is so fucking cool. These very interesting contrasting colors. The white against like this blood red color is like a big pairing in this. You got some like contrasting reds and blues and stuff. Just really damn gorgeous looking show. But I will say, I think there was, bear with me when I say this, I think there was too much action, by which I mean there was so much action in this show, in this season, just non-stop, wall-to-wall action, that eventually my eyes just started to glaze over. Because, like, there is such a thing as, again, common phrase, too much of a good thing, I would say. It's too much of these really cool action sequences back to back, so a lot of it just starts to like mush together. Um and like there's not enough like downtime in between fights, and also just not enough downtime in some of the fights where like I think more of the standard fight scene while anime characters like talk in their brains for 3 minutes stuff, that kind of trope. We could have used that, I think. Because like otherwise it starts to become like a fuzzy haze sort of. Like I watched the whole thing today. Well, actually, I watched all of Hidden Inventory yesterday, and then I watched all of Shibuya today. And a lot of the fights in Shibuya just kind of blend together. So, the impact has been dulled to a certain extent. And also, I thought we could have used a little more of the talky, explainy sequences because, or at least I could have, because Jujutsu Kaisen's like magic system is not my favorite magic system. It's like no matter how much I watch it or read it, no matter how much I focus on what it's doing, I can never like fully grasp how this power system works. Like there is so much of this show where I was just like, well, I have no clue how that happened. I'm just gonna roll with it. Like the JoJo-esque powers on top of the power system, awesome. Love that. And I love when it like focuses on that stuff. Like Choso's like blood powers, Gojo's repel and attract kind of stuff. There was one other very specific one that I was thinking of. Oh right, the I forget what it's called, but the Toto's clap. Really fucking cool power. I like when the power systems do that. And I don't like when the power system is like, here's an explanation of cursed energy that sounds like every other explanation of cursed energy, but it's slightly different, and I still don't get it after the 20th time that it's been explained to me. Maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe I'm just getting dumber. Who's to say? But something about this show in particular, the power system just does not stick with me. It does not like cement itself in my brain. And maybe like that's somewhat intentional, because like maybe not intentional, but like not something that Gege is trying to like prioritize. Because I saw there was an interview with him a while ago, or not a while, I guess when this comes out a while ago, but where he was basically talking about how like he loved Fate Zero because it didn't really explain anything to you and it just jumped right into it. And I'm pretty sure he was talking about the light novel for Fate Zero, like the original light novel by Gen Urobuchi, and not the Ufotable adaptation, because that one explains the shit out of everything. But that definitely gave me a lot of insight into how he's writing. Like, he's not writing to over-explain everything. And on one hand, that's commendable. I do like that he's not falling into that trap of just, like, beating you over the head with it. But also, he came up with a power system that's so, to me, feels so complex that I kind of wish... I kind of wish he did beat me over the head with it. Or at least gave me, like, better explanations. Or maybe I just need to rewatch season 1. Because I didn't do that before watching this, because that's a whole 2 cores that I'm not super interested in rewatching. Um, who knows? Uh, so yeah, I think, I do think it's very interesting that I watched this so close to Bleach, because the power systems really do share some kind of similarities, at least in terms of, like, the aesthetics of them, I guess. I was thinking about this earlier, and I thought I had a good... Sorry, I'm recording this really late. I thought I had a good connecting thought for that, but something about Bleach and Jujutsu Kaisen, I could see a lot of similarities there, especially in the Thousand Year Blood War stuff versus the Shibuya incident stuff, where people are just getting fucking annihilated. Uh, and again, Jujutsu Kaisen does have a lot of that. Like I mentioned in the my section on Bleach, where it just has those sections where it's like, God damn, you dude got fucked up. Like, it has that vibe to it, which is great. But I don't know. I think it's just because of the complex. Well, part of it's because of the complexity that I tend to prefer Bleach's like spirit pressure system more than Jujutsu Kaisen's cursed energy stuff. But also it's because I think the characters in Bleach are infinitely more interesting and fun. Not to say that all of the Jujutsu Kaisen characters are. Like, there are a ton of characters in this that I really like, especially in Season 2. I liked a lot more characters in Season 2 than I did in Season 1. Um, like, mostly in that, I thought a lot of the characters in Season 2 got better. Like, I liked Gojo a lot more in Season 2 than in Season 1. I liked Mahito even more than I did in Season 1. Mahito might actually be, like, one of my favorite characters in this show, because he is just so unabashedly evil. He's just so into being a bad guy and, like, giving everyone he hates PTSD. The ultimate hater. I have to respect it. And, like, I like him. I like Nanami a lot. I like a lot of the, like, minor characters. But my problem with the cast of Jujutsu Kaisen is, like, a lot of the main characters I have not cared for a lot. Like, I still don't care that much about Megami. Like, I like him more than in Season 2, but I still just... I don't get, like, what's supposed to be appealing about him, I guess. He's just kind of bland. I definitely like Yuji a lot more in this season, mostly because they just turn him into punished Yuji. They really put push him to his mental and moral breaking point in this, of, like, how much will he tolerate the fact that Sukuna is using his own body to annihilate thousands of people at a time. Which, that's another thing that I really found interesting about this in comparison to Bleach. Like, Shibuya incident is interesting, and, like, it's basically like, what if, like, the Soul Society failed during one of their, like, big preventative measures? Like, what if they, uh, what if they did stop Aizen from, like, destroying Karakura Town? And that's basically the Shibuya incident. Where it just goes full, like, the heroes fucked up. This is gonna be the fallout from it. Like, it's a more extreme version of the Paranormal Liberation War from My Hero. A lot more extreme. And it looks like there's going to be, like, severe, like, social and political consequences as a result of that. I'm very interested in seeing where that goes. I'm interested in seeing how Yuji's character is going to go from here, because basically they put the death sentence back on him. But also, like, this season also took away a lot of characters that I really like. That's the big gamble with when you kill off a big portion of your cast, is you run the risk of killing off all the characters that people like and keeping all the characters that aren't quite as interesting. Like, Nanami's dead. Nobara, pretty sure she's dead. They really do the, like, oh, maybe she's not. She's dead. Cope. Gojo's trapped in a box. Mahito's also basically dead. He's part of Geto now, who's also not actually Geto. He's Kamo, I guess. That was an interesting little reveal, because I was always confused about that. After watching Jujutsu Kaisen 0, where I was like, wait, Gojo kills him at the end of that? Then how is this a prequel? How is he in season 1? And then this explained that pretty well. Brain in a box, and the box is a skin suit. Kind of running out of things to say without just listing off things that happen in the show. I guess I still really enjoyed this show overall, but a little bit less than I was hoping for. More than I expected to, considering that I dropped the manga during this arc. Oh, I really liked Hidden Inventory. I wasn't, like, super into it during the manga, but the anime just made it sparkle so damn much. That I alone and the honored one quote is fucking iconic. I love the way that it shows Geto's origin of turning into the human-hating sorcerer that he is. Like that basically moral swap that Gojo and Geto go through during that arc. Really fun stuff. That might be the most that I have. That Hidden Inventory, and then, like, this punished Yuji at the end of this season are probably the most that I have cared for the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, which is a shame, because I really want to like this cast a lot more. Like, the banter is really fucking good. I like the way that it balances, like, the comedy and the serious and the tragic in this. Just something about this particular cast of characters, it feels a lot more hit and miss for me with, like, the main cast than it does with some other similar shows, like with Bleach or with My Hero or Chainsaw Man or stuff like that. So yeah, I liked it, just not quite as much as I wanted to. Alright, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 is complete. We're gonna put it I'm going to put it in the number 16 spot with a light 8. Really enjoyed that. Was hoping for a little more, but definitely happy with what we got. And now, going back down to our catch-up list here, we're going to do Tsurune, the linking shot. I actually haven't seen the first season of Tsurune either. I watched like a little bit of the first episode, I think, years ago when it first came out and wasn't a fan of it. So now I'm going to go back and give it another shot and power through to season 2. Okay, so I know I promised at the start of this video that I was going to like finish every show on this list just for like awards purposes. But goddamn, man, I just can't get through this show. I got through 3 episodes of Tsurune, the first season of Tsurune. I didn't even make it to the second season that aired this year. So I did the 3 episode rule thing that's totally outdated now, but people still hold to for some reason. My gripes with this show, it's a combination of a lot of things. Mostly, these characters have like absolutely no chemistry whatsoever. Like they are, it's like combative in the wrong kind of way, and like the friendliness aspects of the characters don't really shine through at all. Like everything feels needlessly conflict driven in like an emotional negative kind of way. I'm not explaining this well, but like I don't enjoy these characters interacting with each other. They do not fit together well, and maybe that's part of the point, but it certainly does not make the show engaging. I really struggle to find anything about any of these characters that I legitimately like. That's another thing. I just straight up don't like the characters either, outside of their interactions with each other. I really don't find any of them endearing or funny or compelling. I just do not like anyone in this show. Like, I don't hate anyone except... No, there's no one that I hate. But I just don't... Sometimes it'll be like just these random turns of... Random, like, bits of dialogue that they use where it's just like, I don't want... Man, that seemed like kind of mean in a weird way, or like, this seems like just too much. I don't know why I'm so nebulous about what I don't like about this show, other than it's the other aspect of it, which is it's boring. This show is also immensely boring, partly because of the reasons that I listed, because this is a much more of like a low stakes character drama kind of show from KyoAni. But since I don't like any of the characters, I'm just bored the whole time. I legitimately don't care about any of them. And so all the drama is just goes right through me. And so a lot of the things that the drama is centered around just go right over my head. Like, the main thrust of the drama is that the main character has target panic. They don't even explain what target panic is until episode 3. And even after they explained it, I still didn't understand what it was. Like, I legitimately had to look up, outside of this show, what target panic was. And I still don't think I fully understand it. I had to I couldn't find any,
when I searched for it, like, I literally just typed into YouTube, what is target panic? Most of them were hunting videos, but you know what? Close enough. It's a guy using a bow. And so I have a vague idea of it, where it's like, you basically, it's like a sort of half psychological, half neurological condition where you just fuck up your shot. But also, I looked up these videos, and these videos have existed for a while. Like, I found videos from, like, 2018, 2017. Like, that's some of the, like, that's the stuff that floats to the top of the YouTube algorithm. And the original novel for this was written in 2016. So I can assume that there was a lot of talk about target panic before this. And so I don't understand why he gave up initially after getting, like, hit with target panic, and, like, no one tried to help him. Like, his coach clearly should have been like, oh man, you got target panic. Here's a list of drills that you can go through in, like, middle school. But we don't get that, and we actually get, like, very little of him coming down with target panic outside of the moment that it happens. And so, me having to fill in the gaps of, like, why he just completely fell off of archery makes it make less sense. So, all aspects of this story, for me, are either annoying, boring, or don't make any sense. So, I just refuse to suffer through any more of it, especially because it's not that good looking a show. Like, it's still a KyoAni show, so it's still competent looking, but, like, by KyoAni standards, this is not a good looking show. It's, like, there's a lot of character melt. It's a little bit of character melt. Again, I'm going by KyoAni standards and not by, like, regular seasonal garbage standards. But, like, the character designs aren't particularly good. Like, they're not all that interesting to look at. There's not a whole lot that they're doing with, like, lighting or shot comp other than having, like, cool camera and cool layouts sometimes. I'll give them that. There are some cool layouts that the show has. But, like, the color design is either, like, just bog standard, like, kind of pleasant, or in some instances a little bit jarring. Like, the scene where the sandy blonde-haired kid is in the bow shop, there's a shot where, like, it's like a medium to medium wide shot that just looks so weird color-wise. So there's really nothing visually drawing me to this show either. I can't watch 24 more episodes of this, because that's how many more episodes I would have after that, I think. It's like 25 to 27 more, or 22 to 25 more episodes. I'm sorry, I'll take my chances that this one doesn't win any of the award that I'm presenting for. Also, it's a character from season 2 that I think is nominated anyway, so I'm just gonna take the risk.
Alright. Tsurune is unfortunately coming off the list. Which brings us to Skip and Loafer next. I had originally dropped this during the spring season, but I didn't feel like necessarily, like, bad about the series. Like, just wasn't super digging it. Maybe I will feel differently if I jump into it a little bit further.
All right, definitely a good decision to pick this one up again. It just finished up all of Skip and Loafer, and that was pretty fun, pretty damn fun. I didn't go back and rewatch my little excerpt from the spring season as to why I dropped it, but if I recall, it was because I found it perfectly fine, but I didn't particularly connect with any of the characters. Like it was like if I recall, I probably said something along the lines of like I would give this like some kind of 6 or something if I finished it, and I would say I'd definitely give it higher than that. I still wasn't entirely blown away by it, but I definitely do want to give it more credit than I gave it in that initial recording. For starters, I definitely liked these characters a lot more as time went on. I just really got more invested in their stories, like and just their general personalities and the way that the chemistry that they built up. I think that was one of my fears in my initial first impression of it, was that the chemistry was like very awkward at first, but like purposefully so, and I was worried that it was going to extend further into the series than it did. But the chemistry like very quickly started to develop, actually fairly quickly after the point where I stopped watching it, where this cast just really started to gel together in really interesting ways. I love Mitsumi and Shima's friendship. Despite what it looks like on the tin, this is not a rom-com in any way. There is no romance in this, even though like our leads are a guy and a girl in high school. At least as far as this first season goes. I don't know what happens later in the manga, but I really like that there's just this platonic guy-girl relationship, and that they really value each other's like personalities and like who they are as people, especially Shima, and how he sees Mitsumi as just this giant ball of both anxiety and like confidence to just like keep chugging away no matter what gets in her path. Shima himself, I believe, is the one. He's the reason that I picked this up again, because doing this for the R Anime Awards, and he was nominated for Best Dramatic Character. And I really liked his arc in this. This like child star who had an incident happen to him in the past, has some family drama, and is now just kind of like trying to force all of that down while still trying to be like the I just want to please everybody kind of person. And like Mitsumi is able to draw out a lot more of his genuine personality and just like allow him to be like happy, I guess. It's a fun little dynamic between the two, and the rest of the cast is just super solid as well. I gotta give what's her name? Egashima in particular, I really liked her. As like she starts off as this kind of, you think she's gonna be kind of a villain character, but Mitsumi is just so accepting of everyone that she just can't stay a villain for very long, and very quickly ends up on her side in this. And eventually like Mitsumi forms like her very like close-knit little friend group. And I like the way that they just different characters like click together like puzzle pieces in certain ways. Where it's like this character fills in the gap that this character needed, and that's why they're friends, and so on. It's a very it's an under-discussed aspect of friendship, I think, where it's just like this person. I don't have this thing in my life. This person has that thing. I am interested in that thing. Now I want to be that person's friend. it sounds kind of transactional when I spell it out that way, but it's really not. It's just I do really love the... I don't know if series was nominated for Best Cast, but it definitely should have been. I really think the cast itself for this series is very strong, and the way that they interact with each other is definitely the highlight of the show for me. I will say, though, there was something that started to, like, irk me a little bit as the series went on, and it's like... It's the standard, like, anime over-explaining the point kind of thing. Like, especially in, like, the last few episodes, they really go out of their way to go, like, this is exactly how I am feeling, and I am going to explain it to you over the course of, like, the next 5 minutes. Some instances it works, like, when it's a few, like, fleeting thoughts and stuff, but when it just draws out into these very long internal monologues or just like these very long like dialogues with each other, it can get a little bit like it can feel a little bit out of place. I'm like, these are still high schoolers. This isn't like how, in my experience, this isn't how high schoolers talk a lot of the time. Also, although I was a very awkward high schooler who didn't talk to a whole lot of people. But it did feel a little bit too anime over-explainy at times. So that's probably like my biggest gripe with this series, is that the subtext is just text. Which normally I'm a fan of, but like it's not like explosive enough, I guess, or melodramatic enough for me to like it. I guess when I bring this up all the time, that whatever that GIF or like that soundbite is, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. I like that when it's like really like in your face melodramatic about it, and just like the raw emotion is spilling out. I like it when it does that. But when you're just like kind of explaining it to me at a even-tempered pace, it's just kind of boring. So, and that would not have, to be fair, that melodramaticness would not fit in the show at all. This is a very low-key, just vibes kind of show. So I'm glad they didn't like shove in some over dramatic stuff out of nowhere. It came very close in the last episode, but still managed to keep the vibes nice. But yeah, just nice low-key chilled show with some really bright and very soothing artwork. I think I mentioned this in my first take of the series, is that it looks really good. Like, I like the character designs. Color palette's really nice and vibrant and like airy, very pastel-ish. It's a very nice series to look at. I think I don't know if this was brought up when the show was airing, but one of the under-discussed things, I guess, about it was that the female characters that are supposed to look not attractive actually look like a reasonable level of not attractive. Like, a lot of times when, like, with anime, they'll have the character like, oh, this frumpy little high school girl. I'm like, she looks just as cute as every other anime waifu that I've seen in the past 6 months. But this show actually, like, does a good job of drawing characters in a way that makes you go like, oh, I guess I understand that this character is not meant to be, like, hugely physically attractive. Like, there's nothing, like, kawaii about this character. I really appreciate that about the designs. Like, Mitsumi is cute, but she's cute because of her personality. Like, her looks are just very, like, plain and just totally average looking. But what's cute about her is the way that she acts and the way that she talks to people. That's what makes her cute, not her being an anime girl. So, and there are a bunch of other characters. Like there was a definite distinction between like the super hot character, the kinda hot character, the decent looking characters, the totally average looking characters, the kinda not good looking characters. It's not something that you see a lot in like high school anime. It's very often it's just like 90% of the characters are very attractive. Well, actually no, it's more like 30% of the characters are very attractive, and then like 65% of the characters are just like above average attractive, and then like 5% are maybe average or below average. But they actually have like a decent spread of attractiveness of both genders too. So I found that's definitely something I want to draw attention to. But yeah, I enjoyed this show. The over-explaininess got to me in the end, but I think overall this is definitely a show worth watching and worth putting on the list.
Alright, Skip and Loafer is complete. And let's see, how far up are we going to put this one? We're going to put this one right here in the number 25 spot. You get a strong 7. I didn't like super love it, but this was a very like nice, very fluffy, relaxing, very like good series with a lot of good things to derive from it. Alright, last one for this award show catch-up video is Pluto. I am a huge fan of the manga for this. This is like one of my favorite manga. I've heard mixed things about how the anime handles certain special effects. So let's just jump into it.
Yep, that was pretty much everything I was expecting and most of what I was hoping for. It just finished up all of Pluto. I was not expecting the episodes to be that long, although it does make sense in hindsight. Like, all of these episodes are like 55 minutes to an hour 5 minutes long, but there's only 8 episodes, which corresponds to the 8 volumes of the manga. So, makes sense that they're all real beefy episodes. Before we dive into the actual content of this series, I do want to say, weirdly enough, my one major critique is that this got dumped on Netflix. Like, if you haven't been following the discourse, Pluto has been in adaptation hell for a while. Like, at least 5 to 10 years it has been in like production limbo of like, oh, they're gonna make Pluto, they're finally gonna adapt Pluto, they're gonna do it, and it's just been in hell forever waiting to be adapted. And like, this is if you're unfamiliar with Pluto, first of all, go watch it immediately, because I'm going to give this a very high rating at the end. So there's your spoiler warning, I guess. But if you're unfamiliar with Pluto, it is a readaptation of the most famous arc of Astro Boy, or at least one of the most famous arcs. It's like the strongest robot on Earth, I believe, is the name of the original arc. And it was readapted into a crime thriller by Naoki Urasawa, who is the writer of Monster and 20th Century Boys. So it combines Tezuka's like fascination with future technologies and how those technologies affect humanity with Urasawa's really solid dramatic writing and thriller writing, and his ability to craft an extremely compelling narrative. And I am upset that this did not get a broadcast treatment. Because, like, for all of the things that I just mentioned in the past few minutes, this was supposed to be an event. Like, this was supposed to be big. It had two of the most famous manga authors of all time behind it, one of the most famous anime properties of all time behind it, and its content is, like, for lack of a better word, important. This is a show that feels important, and I'll get into why in a little bit, but, like, this should have been a TV event. Like, this should have been, like, the thing to watch. Like, and I understand, like, if it had been a TV series, it probably would have been half-hour, like, 25-minute episodes, and they would have chopped some stuff up, maybe, like, cut some stuff off in different places. But I still think it was doable. Like, you could have made this a 2-core show. Very easily, actually. In fact, actually, the time... It's actually, like, slightly shorter than a 2-core show, now that I think about it. It's in, like, the 21 episode range. So, like, you could have very easily done just, like, a 21 or 22 episode series with this. Rearranged some of the stuff, and you could have just done this as a broadcast event, or you could have just broadcast it as is and just filled in, like, the gaps with, like, commercial breaks. Have, like, an hour-and-a-half block to just air this in on TV for 2 months straight. Because this is something... It just feels like such a massively wasted opportunity to just dump one of the most beloved manga, like, one of the most highly praised mangas of all time, dump its adaptation on Netflix with basically the same level of marketing as something like Be the Beginning. You remember that one? And then it gets its 1 week of hype and then goes away. Like, I actually think Be the Beginning had more staying power than this show, at least in terms of anime fandom interest in this show. Like, nobody's talking about Pluto anymore. This came out in October. Nobody is talking about this show anymore. And that's very upsetting, because this show is very fucking good. Like I said, it is a crime thriller based around an Astro Boy plot. But really, it is a crime thriller based around an Astro Boy plot that was also layered on top of the Iraq War. like, it's very obvious when you watch the show that that's what it's about. It is about the U.S.'s unlawful invasion of Iraq and the fallout that came to the Middle East as a result of that, and how that birthed a massive terrorist movement that is now haunting the entire world to this day. That's what this story is about. And framing it through the perspective of Astro Boy is kind of ingenious. It is, like, brilliant, because Astro Boy, it was not well, actually, I don't know enough about Astro Boy to say this, but it was not an overtly, like, heavily political series, but it always had elements in it that could be made political. For example, the treatment of robots in this show. Like, at this point in the story, robots basically have the same rights as humans, but not all humans tend to agree with that. So we have this very heavy social undercurrent of what it means to be a robot versus what it means to be a human, what robots can do versus what humans can do, what they can feel versus what humans can feel, and the convergence of all of that. What happens when a robot becomes so human that it is near indistinguishable from a human? And what is it that makes a robot indistinguishable from a human? And I love, it's a very cynical way to look at it, but what makes a robot I love that the final approach of what is a robot, what separates a robot from a human, like that one line is, a robot cannot lie. And then when robots start to lie in this show, that is the moment where they are essentially human. And I think that is a thought that we really need to dwell on for a little bit. Like, not only the fact that humans can lie, but also why humans lie. And essentially it is self-interest, I guess you could say. So, and then it's just, there are so many ideas like that in this show. That's why I consistently try to read as much Tezuka as possible, even though I end up disappointed a lot more often than not, is because he was an ideas writer. He loved going like, oh, what if this happened? Well, what if this happened? What about this? What if this thing? And this is and filtering that through the very dark drama writing of the guy who wrote Monster, I think was brilliant, because it really allows us to dive deep into these very complex and very rich characters that are acting out this political thriller. Like Gesich as our main character, who is the reason that I'm watching it in this video in the first place, because he's the character that was nominated for the R Anime Awards. I probably should have been doing that for this whole video, pointing out which characters were nominated for this award, which is the reasons why I'm doing it in the first place. I guess I could backtrack a little for that. What was the first show that I watched for this? What did I watch before Jujutsu Kaisen? Overtake. The photographer character was the guy. In Jujutsu Kaisen, it was Geto. In Tsurune, it was a character that I didn't even get to in the second season, I think. In Skip and Loafer with Shima, and then now in Pluto, it's Gesich, our Europol officer. I believe in the manga they just said Interpol, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but it might have been. Or maybe I'm getting that confused with Lupin III. Who knows? But, like, we have this one of the 7 greatest robots in the world. He is this ultimate detective robot. And with this very mysterious and dark backstory that he doesn't even know about himself until later in the series. Him trying to find out who is murdering all these robots and who is murdering these like robot professors and scholars. What is this plot that is happening? And as he dives further and further into this mystery, he learns more about himself, more about robots as a species, more about humans as a species, and again about that line between the two. And there are just so many incredible, mostly new characters. I'm going to say mostly new because I don't know how many of these characters actually show up in Astro Boy. I'm going to say mostly new characters like Gesich and Dr. Hoffman as the guy who takes care of Gesich and is just sort of caught in between all of these scientist characters who are just trying to do science. I will say this is a lot of the characters are very overly noble, I guess you could say. And that is definitely a remnant of Astro Boy itself, but I don't think they feel out of place or overly preachy in these moments. Because they're balanced out by a lot of more like nuanced characters. Like we have these like fighter characters and like Brando and Heracles. This very like incredibly like intent, detailed like half episode arc with North Number 2 and his master, Paul Duncan, I think was the name of the character, about like learning to bring together like the two sides, the robot and human perspective, and combining them into art, essentially. That is one of my very basic critiques about the show, and in general about this show. But that episode in particular really brought something to the forefront about this, is that the music sounds weird in this show. Like, it sounds like it was recorded weird. I don't know what it is. Like, something about the audio quality of the music is like less than like the quality of like the voice acting and the sound effects. It just sounds muddled. It sounds fuzzy. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but who knows? But in that episode in particular, like Duncan is talking about how like you don't need like, he hates like that machines that can make music. He just wants his like real piano to make music with. And then he starts playing the piano, and it was very obvious that the piano sounds were recorded on a keyboard and not a real piano. Like, it was one of the most obvious fake piano sounds I've heard in anime in a while. And I was like, well, that kind of undercuts the entire point of this scene, doesn't it? So that's my one like just outright critique of the show, is that the music sounds weird. But back to the characters, the newish characters are all really good, and the returning characters from Astro Boy are all really good. Like, Astro Boy Adam himself is just, what they do with him in this series is just so enrapturing and engaging. Forcing this basically child robot to go through a tremendous amount of emotional upheaval and force him to process all of this emotion and trauma and try to figure out what emotion was so captivating. I really like what they did with Dr. Tenma in this series, and how he gets quite a bit more focus in this than I expected. And like, he actually has like an arc that he goes through of resolving basically his issues with Adam not being the son that he wanted to bring back to life. God, all these characters are so really goddamn well written, and especially like the antagonists, this giant mess of hatred and despair and plotting that all of these protagonists, who basically just turn out to be like two antagonists who are basically just iterated upon into like different versions and different bodies and stuff, and the way that they just represent the hatred that comes from essentially a world superpower completely destroying your country for no reason. I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards. Oh, what? I think I said that in the Skip and Loafer segment too. This is where I like that. This kind of show is where I like that. Like, there's literally just, I think it's in the second to last episode or the last episode where they show, like, the president of the United States of Thracia, and, like, it's like an establishing shot, and it's literally just the White House. It's just the White House. I'm like, brilliant, awesome, A+, no notes. And it makes you really, it reminds you that we did that. Like, it never makes the case that, like, not Saddam, who is, I think it's like Darius the 14th or whatever in this, the not Saddam Hussein character, it never makes the case that he's like a good guy, but it definitely makes the case that we completely destroyed his country. If you want to know more about that, I would highly recommend Season 1 of Blowback. It's a podcast that I listened to a little while ago, and man, once you listen to that first season, you will learn some things about this country. So that is my recommendation for that if you want to know what actually happened in and around the Iraq War. But back to Pluto. Yeah, this story feels important. It is grand and thrilling and melodramatic and enrapturing, and it talks about so many high-level concepts like AI, like consciousness, and civil rights, essentially, and political dominance, and what that means is just damn fucking good. Like, it's basically the manga. I haven't read the manga in, like, God, when did I read that? That was like 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. But from what I recall, it is just pitch perfect, the manga, and it is just, the dialogue is just really well written and just ripping, and the pacing of it is just so damn intense and thrilling, and it's just fast paced all the time, even in the slow, even, like, there's never like a dull moment in this show, despite the fact that all the episodes are like 55 minutes to an hour long. I was never like, I very rarely like paused to take a break or something. I was just like I was like in the entire time. And a lot of that's because it's a damn good looking show too. Now there was some controversies about special effects animation with this, where basically some people went in and redrew stuff over already existing animation. I don't recall which scenes those were exactly, but I can hazard a guess as to which ones they were, because this show does some very interesting action animation. On the one hand, I could definitely see, like, yeah, if you just drew this normally, like you just did traditional key animation for this, it would still look really good. There's quite a bit of CG in this, but like it's never used in like the robot fighting, or at least I don't recall any of it being used that way. It's mostly in like vehicles and the cockroach robots and stuff. But whenever it's just like two robots hand-to-hand fighting, it's not like a super CG fest, which is good. But there is this some kind of effect that they use on the fight animation where it like looks like it's getting like distorted and everything is just like it almost looks like the frame is just tearing itself apart. And so on the one hand, I could see how that's distracting, but on the other hand, it is a very unique aesthetic, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad aesthetic. Would I have preferred just some straight traditional animation? Maybe. Maybe I would have, but that effects work and the color design of it was very, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Impacting. Like, it left a mark in my head. Like, I am definitely going to remember those moments because they were technically abstractly impressive, I guess you could say. Which is yeah, that's my thoughts on the action animation. I can understand why people were upset by it, and I am a little disappointed in some moments, but also it's just generally competent. The general competence overall was just so damn good that it carried through those very weird moments. And also just the general competence of the production on the whole. Like, this is a very competent production. The character designs, I don't really recall a lot of off-model stuff. I don't recall any off-model stuff ever. There were only a few moments. There were like a few moments here and there across a few episodes where like the compositing was kind of off, but it wasn't like the worst that I've seen from compositing. It was probably around like Vinland Saga level compositing issues. But like aside from that, like really strong set design and like background art and character designs, like these are the classic Urasawa designs that are doing reimaginings of Osamu Tezuka designs. They all look really good. Like Adam looks really good. Gesich looks really good. These are like very iconic looking designs that like, and the cinematography is really solid. The framing is really solid. Although I'm pretty sure most of the shots are just like the panels of the manga, which, you know what? I guess the manga translates to the anime really well. Like, I think I've heard that said about Urasawa before with Monster. Monster was basically... don't take my word for it, but from what I've heard, Monster was basically just the manga put to anime without a lot of, like, abstractness. And I was... actually, Pluto does have some really interesting abstract moments that I don't quite recall being in the manga. Maybe they were there, but like the Epsilon's death scene was really good. The digital effects, the digital like tearing was really interesting to look at. A lot of the like inside the robot mind sequences were really fucking good. And it's just really high level production that's not, outside of the action scenes, it's not like super flashy, but it is really strong. This is a damn strong series that I wish didn't get dumped on Netflix. I really wish more people were still talking about this, and I wish it got more than like a week of talking about, because this is a really damn good show. It's one of my favorite manga, and it's been adapted into one of my favorite anime. I'm gonna say this is like in the favorites realm for me. Not quite as high up percentage-wise on my anime list as it is on my manga list, but this is really damn good. In fact, it's quite a lot like, it is very much in the vein of Vinland Saga in terms of theme, like this anti-hatred theme and this like cycles of violence and such. It is the same kind of show essentially. Maybe that's why it got. Maybe that's one of the reasons why it got overshadowed, because Vinland Saga was that for the entire first half of 2023, and then this came along 4 months later, and it just did it all at once. I'm still not sure which one does that particular theme better, but damn, I love this show. You should go watch Pluto.
Alright, Pluto is complete. And we're going to go real high up on the list for this one. Alright, come on. It's an old tripod. There we go. We're going to put it all the way up in the number 2 spot. You're getting a decent 9. Just shy of the number 1 spot. Fucking incredible series. You should go watch it. And so that brings us to the end of our Anime Awards catch-up series. Which means it's finally time to roll into the fall 2023 season proper. Although I'm probably going to do some backlog catch-up here first. So until then, my name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.